Welcome back to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm the Carolina Weather Group's James Brierton. Later this month, NASA and SpaceX hope to launch Crew 7 to the International Space Station to continue science into exploring human exploration of space. In the years ahead, we will go to the moon and eventually to Mars. And once Crew 7 settles in at the International Space Station, it will be time to get Crew 6 back home here to Earth. We now are going to take a look back, an encore presentation of our behind-the-scenes experience into what went into that Crew 6 launch, right here from Kennedy.
So by my count, this is at least the third time today that I've been speechless, without anything to say. It's been an exciting day. We've seen so many things that I wasn't expecting to see. But as you may have noticed by now, there's a group of people here behind me who all seem to be trained on at least one more really cool thing. Welcome to Launch Complex 39A. That's SpaceX Falcon 9. That is going to carry Dragon and 4 humans to space, continuing to support the International Space Station and science that is someday going to carry us beyond low Earth orbit into the moon, to Mars, and beyond.
Today's video is sponsored by HelloFresh. Stay tuned for a special discount code available to you, our Carolina Weather Group fans.
I'm James Brierton at the Kennedy Space Center, and this is a special edition of the Carolina Weather Group.
We're getting on the bus now. We've got quite a few people here.
All right, so I think the 2 hardest objectives have been cleared so far for me. 1, getting up early. That is not easy for me. And 2, they did manage to give me one of these. I think everyone on this bus was probably slightly paranoid that for some reason we'd get here and have forgotten some form of identification. But the day is about to get started. When we checked in, we all got this bag. Should we see what's in the goodie bag? Let's see, we got a International Space Station patch. That's really cool here. We got down at the bottom, I think we got some pins and things. Let's see, I think we got a calendar. Lots of information, which I think will be the theme of the day. Oh, look at this. Is this a poster? I think it's a poster. What is this? Second calendar. Because what's better than 1 calendar, but 2 calendars. 2 calendars.
Guys, take some VAB pics right here. We will be going to the VAB. Woo! So you'll get some more pictures there.
It's a little before 10 now on Friday. We just wrapped up sitting in the actual press briefing room, meeting our fellow attendees of the NASA Social.
I work for a software company now, and I do video stuff.
One fun fact, my dad was a truck driver in this area. When they launched Apollo 11, and he charged people to sit on top of his truck.
So I'm a huge aviation nerd.
A fun fact that I didn't put on the application that would have made way too much sense to put on the application is my grandfather worked for Grumman during the Apollo era and worked on the lunar module.
There are 2 radios on the ISS, so kids get to talk live to an astronaut on the space station over ham radio.
Hi, Molly.
Molly, sorry. Molly. Molly. Molly with an H, not Polly.
They told us we have about 12 minutes that we can walk around here at the press site, and we can use this time to create content, which is what we are all here to do. And I think this is the first time of many times during this trip where I'm going to have a small window of time to get my words right, to figure out what to say, and I just can't get over the view. I don't know what to say. What are you supposed to say? But I guess what I can manage to say is we are in the presence of some historic places, structures, roads, lands. This building behind me is the Vehicle Assembly Building. It is a enormous building, and it is where many generations of space vehicles have been, like its name suggests, assembled vertically and then make their trek out to one of many historic launch pads here at Kennedy
Space Center. We're getting ready now to go across the street into the vehicle assembly building. This is going to be one of the coolest parts of the entire weekend, going inside this building where most visitors to the complex don't get to go. But before we do, a routine security check. So how tall is the vehicle assembly building? About 530 feet tall. Wow.
So this is the building where we stacked the Artemis 1 moon rocket and where we'll stack the coming Artemis missions. But this is also the building where all the Saturn V's for the Apollo program and all 135 space shuttles were stacked in here. So some people refer to this building as the Space Cathedral because there's a lot of history in here. As we're making our way down the building, I'll try to point out some of the original components that were used for Apollo. This is kind of their testing and checkout cells, right? So before you stack all the pieces on top of each other, you want to make sure that they're all going to fit together and they're all ready for launch. You can kind of think of the rockets we bring in here as a kind of highly explosive set of Lego, right? We're kind of all roads lead to Kennedy Space Center, and here at the Vehicle Assembly Building, we get all the pieces and parts of the rockets.
During the Artemis 1 launch,
Yes.
They rolled back for hurricanes. What are hurricanes like inside this building?
Yes, so this is Florida, so it's an occurrence that, we're prepared for. So essentially, all the doors, I mean, they're mostly closed right now, but they kind of, close up the building nice and snug. And yeah, this building is prepared to take on hurricanes, so.
So you want to survive an hurricane?
Yes, and the building next door, the Launch Control Center, that's the place you want to be. So when we have hurricanes here, there's a whole team that rides them out. And so they get to sleep and have a sleepover in the Launch Control Center, making sure that the center is all safe and sound. But what happens is the crawler transporter rolls under here at its top speed of about 1 mile per hour. The platform, you can kind of see it sitting on yellow jacks right now. So the crawler comes up under there, raises up, that gray platform sits on it, and then rolls to the launch pad.
This day is insane. This is by far insane.
Just to give you an idea of how tall.
We just took the elevator up to the 16th floor.
So here's 2 of our high bays. This one right across from us was used for space shuttle. So you can see the orange platforms in there and the gray. We can't see it, but in this gray box over here, that's where the access point into the shuttle was. So if they needed to, put payloads in there or put people in there to get everything configured for the astronauts, that was kind of their access point for shuttle. And you can kind of see the big doors a little better. On the bottom level, it's kind of like big barn doors that open up horizontally. And then this way, they open up vertically. It takes about 45 minutes to get the doors all the way opened up. But you can kind of see where the space shuttle maxed out on this side. So they didn't need to open all those vertical doors to get the shuttle out. But for Artemis and Apollo, they do have to open those doors all the way up because they're so much taller than the space shuttle was.
The Vehicle Assembly Building is not the place to work if you don't like heights. It is the tallest single-story building by volume. And it just seems to go forever.
Right here, actually hooked up to the crane right now. The boosters are 5 segments tall. For Space Shuttle, they were 4 of these segments. So this is the bottom segment. And actually, the entire weight of the rocket is stacked on these solid rocket boosters. So they're the first part of the rocket that gets stacked before they put the big orange core stage in between them. And you can kind of see in there, some of the platforms are extended in the high bay. So those platforms go in and out. Imagine giant hydraulic kitchen drawers. That's essentially what those platforms are. And those are the access points for the workers to get to the rocket. And they come to us via rail from Utah. Then they wheel them over here into this. The crane team gets all ready to go, and then up right where we were standing and over and down into High Bay 3. Yeah, so full scale of 1/5 of one of the boosters. And so you got 2 of those, plus the core stage, plus the upper stage. So it's hard to visualize it, but it's a pretty big rocket.
We haven't even reached lunchtime yet on Friday, and already the first big surprise inside the Vehicle Assembly Building waiting for us, the director of the Kennedy Space Center.
Anyways, I'm super excited to have you guys out here today.
You're the first woman to hold this position, and we're getting ready to send the first woman to the moon.
Absolutely.
What does all of that mean to you?
We had our first Artemis 1 mission, as you said, at the end, capstone of our 60th anniversary. It was a big anniversary present for us. But Yeah, first woman and first person of color on the surface of the moon, lunar. I have my personal favorite that I picked out in the astronaut that I want to go, but who knows? I'll be making an announcement for the crewed flight of Artemis 2 sometime this year, soon, sometime this year. But then, of course, Artemis 3 is when the crew will actually be descending down to the surface of the moon. So that'll be the real exciting. Right now? And then, of course, Artemis 3 will be bringing up our astronauts in Orion, matching up and bringing them down. 2025 is when we're shooting for. But there is some complexities and some dependencies there. So we'll see.
There are a lot of cool things at NASA. I think the VAB might be one of my favorite because it is the persistent home of historic missions to the moon and eventually to beyond. This is the one that has been here throughout. Traveling is great, but coming home to nothing but a butter packet and a teaspoon of milk, that's not much help. And when you got nothing to make, let's face it, that just drives up the budget even more. You buy more takeout, and now you're spending more money. And that's where HelloFresh comes in. You can get fresh, pre-portioned ingredients, seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. We all want to save money this time of year. But did you know that HelloFresh helps you save money all year round? In fact, HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% cheaper than takeout. Fast and fresh recipes, Hello's latest line of meals features robust flavors and filling portions. Ready in 15 minutes or less, you can enjoy the taste and quality of recipes like falafel power bowls, seared steak and potatoes, Béarnaise sauce, or my favorite, the Southwest pork and bean burrito. To try HelloFresh and avoid that empty kitchen and that next trip to the grocery store, you can find a special link for Carolina Weather Group fans in the description of this video. It gets you a discount and free shipping and helps support our show. Why don't you give HelloFresh a try starting today? As we come off the bus, you'll notice that the vehicle assembly building is behind me. And that's because right across the street here is the parking lot for the crawler. This is the machine that carries spacecraft, including Artemis, out to the launch pad when they are ready to go from the vehicle assembly building out to the launch pad and prepare for launch.
Well, anyway, this is crawler 2. There's 2 crawlers. There's one on the other side, which was obviously crawler 1. And they were built for the Apollo program. And this one was the second one built. It was built in 1966. The company who built it was a mining company, Marion Power and Shuttle. And they actually pretty much assembled it in Ohio and then brought it down here and then reconstructed it. It's 130 by 115. It weighs 6.6 million pounds. Really, we don't travel any more than a mile an hour. How much fuel? It can hold 5,000 gallons. There's 2 2,500-gallon tanks, one on each end.
How long have you been driving this?
I hate saying this. About 40 years.
Wow. How many missions have you supported then?
About every shuttle mission. Wow. So
the drive obviously takes a while. How long is a driving shift per driver, and what do you do to keep focused during that?
To run the crawler, say like on a rollout operation, it takes about 18 to 20 people. Okay, and that's including technicians on the ground and in the pump room and in the engine rooms. And we all usually take about 2 to 3 hour shifts and rotate. It's not like a car, you can't take it out every day. So the only time you get a chance to actually train somebody is during an operation.
Oh, there's no like us.
Right, there's no, in other words, there's no simulator or anything like that. It's the real deal. Yeah, NASA really doesn't look too much, like you said, anymore to low Earth orbit. They're trying to move, of course, to the moon and beyond. So they're trying to carry the heavier rocket with the heavier, payloads. Artemis is much heavier than the shuttle was. In shuttle, we were carrying about 12 million. And right now we're carrying about 16. So it's upgraded. We had to upgrade all the mechanics on the bottom. We redid all the rollers that the shoes run on so it could carry a heavier load. We strengthened all the trucks. We added steel inside of each of the trucks so it could handle a heavier load. All the gel cylinders, that's the jacking cylinders that raise the chassis up and down. We changed all those out so they can handle the heavier load. We added new engines up top in the engine room so they could actually produce more power, because the mobile launcher compared to the mobile launch platform required a lot more power because we're carrying a tower, and the tower needed more power, and we needed more of a purge on the vehicle. So we had to have a lot more power. If you had to try and build one of these, I'd hate to think how long it would take you to do it. When the crawlers originally built in the 60s, they ran about $10 million a piece.
Wow.
In the 60s.
Wow.
So you think about that now, if you go to today's dollars, yeah, we're looking hundreds of millions.
Out of all of the things I imagine we could be doing today, going inside the crawler, I didn't even know that was within the realm of expectations.
Guess you don't need a brake pedal, do you?
That is a brake pedal.
So I guess you don't need a gas pedal.
That's exactly right. Yeah, we're learning. If you will reach right down there and lift that little lid and flip that switch.
This?
Yep. It's all connected to the PLC, Programmable Logic Controller. So everything's computer driven.
Was it always computer driven even back in the 60s or?
Nope, it was all relays.
Wow.
Back in the 60s, there was a lot of mechanical. The cab has changed quite a bit from Apollo to now. On Apollo, there were actually two consoles, and you actually steered it like they used a jet fighter controller. Left to right, you can see the first is forward, neutral, reverse. It's like your transmission. Talking about a gas pedal, it's called your speed control, the big knob right there. And then you have different steering modes, great circle, crab, independent. The other cab, which is diagonally opposite of here, so it steers the other two trucks. And then, of course, it's the beautiful little steering wheel that everybody loves. It's small, but it's effective. And you can see it's plus or minus 6 degrees. 6 degrees obviously doesn't sound like a lot, but over the entire length of the transporter, a 6-degree turn equals to a 500-foot radius. And that's the tightest the crawler can turn, 500 feet. That's the sharpest turn it can make. As far as moving vehicles, we have a wind restriction, of course. You can't move in more than about, I think it's 40 knot winds. And there's a restriction, but the crawler will still move when there's lightning out there. But obviously you can't have anybody on the ground. They have to be in their vehicles. And really when we're moving well now it's an Artemis to the pad, we try to make sure that there's no lightning within 25 miles.
Right now we're on the crawler, which has moved shuttles and now Artemis, retrofitted to move not only the vehicle, but also the launcher, that tower that's conveniently stored right in the background of my shot right now, to the launch pad. This is a very historic piece of equipment, which I did not expect to get the opportunity to walk on today.
The one, of course, that shot off Artemis 1, and there are 4 interface points that match up the 4 interface points here on top of the crawler. And we jack the mobile launcher up about 3 feet, take it to whatever destination needs to go, typically pad B or the VAB. Everybody likes to equate it. It's 90-foot square. It's like a baseball diamond. Same as a baseball diamond, to give you an idea of size.
I mean, I'm yet again speechless. And I know I sound like a broken record, but NASA is just one time capsule after another that is moving into the future with more and more innovations built upon legacy. It's incredible. We're over here in the flight operations area of Kennedy Space Center, just adjacent to the landing strip that the shuttle used to use. And we're learning a little bit about the aviation support that goes into launching to space.
Basically a small utility helicopter we use here at NASA to do a couple of things. One of which is to do some of the filming for some of our launches. What will happen is you will get a shot of what we like to call a wide angle shot from high altitude. That'll be us in a little helicopter with the camera that'll get that wide angle shot. So usually it's about 15 to 25 seconds that we'll get. It's dynamic, it's beautiful, it's nighttime. We'll be up providing that. So that's one of the things that we do with the aircraft. Safe distance away from the Falcon 9 as it launches, and then it's an incredible shot. It's incredibly dynamic from like 3,000 to 4,000 feet. It looks really neat, especially at night. So let me open the front up. All the other things that are in here, but of course we do have custom NASA seats. Why does that matter? It just matters because it's awesome. Custom NASA seats. I'll even face it this way. Beautiful seat. They look great. I mean, come on. What's there not to love? So I have generally a single pilot aircraft that actually has an autopilot in it, so I can fly it by myself in instrument and meteorological conditions as well. So if the weather's bad, I can fly it by myself with an autopilot. So if I get in here, which can happen, and as it boots up, this is kind of what some of it looks like as it's booting up. So what I mean by MFDs or multifunctional displays, they're basically displays that can be interchanged. So, but if to answer your question, analog like steam gauges, I don't have any steam gauges in here except for this. So that's a lot of trust, but it's a heavily and very reliable aircraft. I mean, the best helicopter that I've ever flown. So you can quote me on that.
How many different radios do you have to coordinate through all the different groups that you're probably working with at one time?
I'd say about 8 radios.
Wow.
Even more than that, if I count them all right. There's like 8 or 9 radios. Yeah, and during Artemis, I mean, it was instrumental that everyone communicated positively and everyone knew where everyone was at, because that coordination is key to mission success.
Are you guys involved with kind of clearing the launch area in case a boat strays in or whatever?
That's a very good question. That is a part of our role as well. They call that sea surveillance. So basically we would go out over the ocean up to sometimes 25, 30 miles out just to ensure that no one's out there. So we'll get a target or a contact. We'll go out and investigate to see if they're inside of that controlled area. And we'll nicely tell them that they need to leave that area or give them kind of a moment of pause to kind of let them know, and a NASA helicopter shows up, at a certain altitude. We definitely want to make sure that they get the message. NASA, we're here to help. And we have people in the back that will do that sort of stuff. We even have a sign that basically basically says, something like that. Like, hey, hi, we're NASA, we're here to help. We need you to basically back off outside of the protected area.
So about a year ago, there was a launch that was scrapped.
There was.
Because of
there was.
cruise ship. There was.
Right. And I was not. We were not working that one.
That's why.
One of the reasons. So perhaps.
I'd rather go with those countries.
Okay, Complex 26 was originally built by the Army Ballistic Missile Agency to test Redstone and Jupiter intermediate range ballistic missiles. The building itself is reinforced concrete. The walls are about 2 foot thick, and the ceiling varies from 5 foot thick at the edge to 8 foot thick in the center. And if you follow me in, we'll go into the firing room. Okay, you're standing inside firing room B. There were 2 firing rooms, as I said before. Both would have been identical. All the equipment you see in here is from that time period, late 50s, early 60s. Most of it was actually used in this building. If you look out the window, you can see the launch pad out there, where that little fenced this area off, about 300 feet from us. I love getting, especially some of the SpaceX guys in here, some of their new hires. They'll come on, I'll show them where the pad is, and they inevitably, one of them will ask us, where did the crew go when they were launched? I'll tell them they were right in here. And everything was hardwired. You had a cable, a copper cable, running from each of these consoles out to the rocket. Problem is, after about 400 feet, the voltage drops off to a point you lose that signal. So that's why it was this close. And when you get down to the last part of the count, they shut all the blast doors and turned off the AC system. Because if something goes wrong, you don't want to suck all those toxic gases in here. And so, like I say, you had 25, 30 guys. It is hot. It's summer in Florida. The temperature is 212 degrees, humidity 4,000%. Just a typical Florida summer day. Everybody smoked. In fact, it was so prevalent, there were ashtrays built into the consoles. But everything revolved around this console here in the center of the room. This is where the launch director or the test director sat. And basically in this room, when they were doing a launch, he was basically God. Now everything came down to these 2 switches. They were flipped at the same time. One would start the turbo pumps, feeding the fuel and oxidizer to the engine. The second one would light the igniter. Somebody like to give it a try. You're tired, You're irritable. Let's get an irritable look on you. No, that's not disgusted. Irritable. You know, like you're going to kill this guy. If he doesn't get this camera out of your face, you're going to kill him. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, launch. And from what we understand, that what you're hearing and the vibration level is pretty accurate to a launch here at that time.
The noise level, wow.
Okay, over in this room, in here today, we have a Burroughs Mod 1 guidance computer. Now in here, this is the core memory. This is like basically the same as RAM in a modern computer. Now this computer, now you got to remember, this was late 50s, early 60s, and this was considered bleeding edge technology. And this computer had a core memory of 258 bytes. Not megabytes, not kilobytes, but bytes. And this is what we use to put John Glenn into orbit.
Here we go. Well, my name is Jamie Draper. It's nice to meet all of you. I serve as the museum director for the Cape Canaveral Space Force Museum. We used to be the Air Force Space and Missile Museum. We just changed our name a few months ago. Hangar C behind me is the oldest missile assembly building on the Cape. It dates to 1953. Werner von Braun and his team worked out of this space initially, and this is where we preserve and display the crown jewels of the museum collection. And just wait, I always feel like Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory. This is gonna blow your minds.
He wasn't kidding when he said they keep the good stuff in here. Outside, it just looks like a hangar. You would drive right past it, never even realize the history that's inside this building.
So welcome to our playground. This is a unique collection. You won't see anything like this anywhere in the world. This is basically the hardware that backed our Cold War policies and began our space programs. Each one of these is so unique you could build an individual museum around each individual piece. It's so steeped in history. The Snark right over here, I'll point out just a few quick highlights, but the Snark is my happy little guy. I really like him. That's our first intercontinental cruise missile, jet engined, and had a distance of thousands of miles. So over 90 of those launched. One veered off course along the eastern range and crashed somewhere in the jungles of Brazil. Still haven't found it to this day. So if you find yourself hiking through the Amazon, keep your eyes open for some scrap metal. I'd love to display a piece of that. And one of those could deploy a nuclear warhead to Soviet Union in a matter of hours, right, Bill? The Jupiter behind this Redstone launched our first full-size re-entry vehicle into space and our first successful bio flights. And then the Thor and Thor Able behind those launched some of our earliest satellites. So there's this theme of develop for destruction, develop for deployment of warheads, and repurpose for our earliest space exploration programs. So on that note, I might hand over to Bill.
Fixing to go take a look at Von Braun's office.
Oh, yeah?
His office space.
Oh my God, are you serious? Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my God, I think I'm gonna have a heart attack.
Yeah,
He said it's not that big of a deal, and I said I don't care.
Oh, well, no, I mean, I don't mean that big a deal. It doesn't look like much right now.
Yeah, okay, I don't care.
Because they've just done a bunch of asbestos removal in there. So it's stripped down to the walls.
We're gonna go see Von Braun's office.
Sweet? Yeah.
No, yeah, that's pretty much a suite.
It was a whole thing, he said.
We had, here, these two rooms. We're, like I say, 99.99% sure, because one of the things in our research, in one of the biographies, they would talk about how, whenever they were doing Redstone, the early Redstone launches, he would go up into the top of the lighthouse there to watch from. Well, at that time, we knew they were launching off Pad 4, which is just down the road. And this is the closest office to the lighthouse, plus the floor in here is completely different from the rest of the building. All this tile, it's not found anywhere else. So we're pretty sure this was the office and this was the conference room. This is where all the planning took place. For Explorer 1, for the Redstone program, was all done in these two rooms. Our plans, our long-range plans we're looking for photos of him here, and we want to restore it back to the way it looked then.
And how long ago did you guys find this?
Well, it actually has been fairly recent because for a number of years, no one was allowed up into this space because of asbestos problems. And so we just recently, about a year ago, did the removal, which was complete. So we started roaming around up here trying to find it. One of the things we're looking at doing, we've got parts of the museum scattered in storage all around the base. What we want to do is consolidate everything into this building.
So we're in a lab now where they are doing experiments to simulate growing plants in space, because the longer the missions go and the further from Earth they go, the more dependent astronauts will be on growing their own food.
This can't be a crew-intensive activity. The crew is we're not devising our crew complements by sending up people who are botanists and farmers like the Martian did. You may see that Mars looks like it's at the end of the roadmap, but in actuality, because of the needs of the food system, it's really the first area we're working towards. Prepackaged food, currently, what we fly in the ISS begins degrading certain key nutrients after like 18 months. For Artemis, I can send the prepackaged food up there and we're good to go, no issues. But for a mission to Mars, that's potentially 2 to 3 years, maybe longer in duration, now I have to supplement that diet because certain key nutrients are starting to degrade.
So right now we're moving forward with some really cool plants. We're doing cucumbers and melons. So I think what's interesting is we'll be able to utilize the work that we do here to expand the amount of foods that are available to the astronauts to eat in the future, so that we can alleviate menu fatigue, because we don't want them to get tired of what they're eating.
Or engineer plants that have less inedible material, more fruit associated with them. So we're actually using more of the plants than what you would traditionally grow today.
One of the plant growth systems we have on ISS is called the Advanced Plant Habitat, or the APH. And the experiments that go on there are called the pH experiments. PHO4, I didn't mention last time, but we grew peppers in the Advanced Plant Habitat. And then this one is going to be PHO7.
Okay, 7, very important.
And what we're using is technology, science carriers, sensors to help us identify what's going on inside the boxes. And then we develop hardware here in our makerspace, like 3D printing, fabrication, rapid prototyping, to make everything work. One of the features of this experiment is something that we haven't done yet, is collecting a sample from the root zone in microgravity. We use this growth media. It's called arsenalite. It's the red clay that you see on baseball fields. And if you open the box in space, it'll float everywhere. So how do you get a root sample back to here? Well, one of our students came up with a pouring device that's 3D printed. We're using a thread on the actual lid. This screws in, and then a sample or a core comes out that holds the sample in it. Once the astronaut pulls it out, they put it into the -80 below freezer, and then we bring it back to Earth and do analysis with it. So it's really cool. I don't know much about the analysis, but I do know about the prototyping and the drawings and the 3D printing. So it's like where all microbiology and engineers and biology come together. This is it completely.
Out here at Launch Complex 39A, SpaceX has built its own vehicle assembly building. They no longer utilize the crawler path all the way out here to the launch complex from NASA's vehicle assembly building. They'll use that structure behind us to construct the Falcon 9 rocket with the Dragon capsule on it first horizontally. They'll pull it out and then turn it vertical, which is different than how NASA does it, where they put everything vertically together in the VAB, and then they'll bring it out to the launch complex behind us. That launch complex, you can see, is protected by a lightning rod that is atop the complex, helps protect the vehicle from any of those pesky Florida thunderstorms. The vehicle itself right now is still on the launch complex behind us, but just slightly out of view because it's actually being held up right now by an arm that will move out of way in time to carry Crew 6 safely up to space. Also out here at the launch complex will be home to SpaceX's Starship. That's the separate tower that is still under construction here behind us. And in case you were wondering, the crawler path is still here, but it's technically a road to nowhere because ever since SpaceX built their vehicle assembly building on the crawler path at the base of the launch complex, it's now just a pile of rocks. A historic pile of rocks. All right, we're getting off the bus back here at the press site. It is Saturday. And at 4:30, we're going to be doing a Q&A panel with some NASA leadership, an astronaut who was the commander of the SpaceX Crew 3 mission to the International Space Station and is in the running to potentially go to the moon as part of Artemis. He's in the Artemis project.
Yes.
Good afternoon and welcome to NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Can you talk a little bit about how your experience with amateur radio and NASA going together?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it's you mentioned it's kind of a capstone project for students, and it's a cool thing to actually do with the project. So you're not just building a radio or going through the mechanics of it. You actually get to use it at the end, and then to talk to the space station is pretty awesome. We used it in one of our sims as well, because if you lose space to ground loops and the Russian comm system, you can actually use the ham radio. So it is a tertiary, a quadruciary backup, if you will, and you have to then convince the person on the ground that you're not hoaxing them. Like, no kidding, this is the ISS. Go call someone. Call Houston.
You're a trained professional, but as a human being, I wonder what it's like dealing with the suspense, waiting to find out who's going to fly Artemis 2, 3, and beyond.
It's actually pretty easy. I'd be happy with anyone in the office to do it. I don't think it matters who it is. We'll all be excited and all fall in line to support that person and those people. I think, we were actually talking. I was talking with some of the PA folks. I think the most common misconception about astronauts is that our job is to fly in space. Well, that is a job, but most of our job is not flying in space. You mentioned 28 years, which is the same number Tom Marshburn, who was my pilot on Crew 3, was in the office. And so out of 28 years in the office, he flew like 500 some days. But that's when you look at the percentages, that's a small amount. But it's flying in space is awesome, don't get me wrong, but we love our day job.
How is the sleep experience while you're out in space?
And it's a little bit different for everyone. Everyone sleeps a little bit, restrains himself a little differently, but I'm sure you've all had that feeling when you start to fall asleep at night, and if your arm goes off the corner of the bed or something like that, and you like startle up, and you've probably all had the experience of being in a roller coaster and the feeling of your stomach coming up. So you have that. I mean, you are in free fall when you're in space. And so as soon as you close your eyes, you snap back awake because your body is telling you you're falling. So it's really hard for your brain to ignore that, because if you were to be falling, like walking forward and falling, you couldn't fall asleep while you're falling. It's just your brain won't allow that to happen. You'll wake up before you hit the ground. On orbit, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks in, was the first time I had a dream where I was floating in the dream. And that next day was the first time that as much as you can use the walls and the ceiling in space, you'll always reorient your body for conversations and to talk, to work in the way that it looks like on the ground, because the laptops and the equipment is oriented a certain direction. But after that time, it didn't matter. And I could come around a corner, it didn't matter. It was, and all of a sudden, like, you notice little things. So like the first few weeks, the ground is always asking, like, did you power off that payload? And that's their gentle way of saying, hey, idiot, you like kicked it with your foot, because we're just like tearing through Ethernet cables and bumping into things. But after that 3 weeks, once that clicked, it was like, oh, everything makes sense. After I landed, the first time I got up in the middle of the night, like it was like 10 hours after we landed. And even though the chair was on the ground, I could not convince myself, it was dark in the room, we're in crew quarters, that I was not standing on the wall. Like I actually had to have my wife come help me get off the ground, because I was convinced I was going to fall over because I was on the wall. Obviously I was not on the wall. I was the chair. I was doing this with the chair, but I couldn't connect. And then about the first good sleep I had that wasn't ambient induced after landing, I had a dream where I was talking to people in the PMM and they were floating, but I was standing on the ground in the PMM. And when I woke up from that, everything was fine, like totally back to normal. But yeah, everyone. And then once you do adjust to sleeping, some people like to be bungeed in, some people like to free float. I know on the shuttle, different people did different things. So that's kind of personal preference, but it's the best sleep I've had in my life. I have 3 young kids, so no one was waking me up in the middle of the night. So it was awesome.
I didn't have any problems sleeping.
Our panelists for being here today, and thank all of our social media content creators and influencers here in the room.
Question didn't get it.
Can we do a group photo?
It's Sunday night. Launch day is finally here. The sun is setting. I've got my arms full of batteries and food and lights and microphones and everything you could think of to possibly, with some hope, bring you live streaming coverage of this rocket launch tonight. I'm kind of afraid I'm going to drop something here. Hang on.
I'm Jared Smith in Charleston, South Carolina, and we are going to be talking with James Brierton on the ground at the NASA SpaceX Falcon 9 Crew 6.
Yes, Jared, I'm here with all my bus peeps at Kennedy Space Center, currently waiting for the astronauts to come out of their quarters here. I will again mention that a lot of the science that goes on in the International Space Station and the NASA program has trickled down to at home. Here come the astronauts.
Here they are.
All right, the cloud is clapping here. You can see they're lined up in a row, waving to their friends and family. The doors now coming up on the Teslas in that very sci-fi style that I'm sure Elon Musk was going for. And you can see they're going to walk the line now.
This is like the red carpet of space launches right now.
It is like the red carpet of space launches. You're absolutely right.
Who are you wearing? I'm wearing Musk.
All right, we seem to be on the move now.
Yep, so there's the security detail doing its thing.
Cheer from staff, friends, and family gathered and waving. I guess I should wave too, shouldn't I? Guys, I just got waved at by an astronaut.
How special do you feel right now?
I kind of feel like I'm dreaming right now, honestly, Candace. Like I'm going to wake up and find out later that this was all a dream. NASA TV will provide you some aerials because the helicopter that we got to see and sit in the other day just went overhead. And I know that's got a camera on board because I touched it. All right, guys, I'm running back to the bus. So if I drop out, I'll see you at the press site.
We now have a look. The astronauts are arriving at the rocket. Right now, you can see that in the corner here in NASA TV. And, James is still en route to his final location to watch the launch. And we have Candace Jordan with us here.
A little error can mean a big difference when you're talking moving at 17,000 miles an hour.
Yep, they're leaning back. Yep, they're taking a look. They're sizing it up right now. Looks like one of the elevators doesn't work either. It looks like they tried to go to one of them. They realized that there was a rope in front of it. So they're having to take the other one. So there's only...
Make sure that they're all,
Yep, there they go. We got the other two now sizing it up, getting a good look at it.
I can't tell who's who here, but it is very funny to watch these.
Oh, it's great. Now they're going to be waiting for the elevator. I think they're walking to the wrong door.
One?
Yep, they're going to the wrong door again.
Are they going to do it too?
Yep,
yes!
Leap the little jump over.
They got so many mission details and no one told them which elevator to go to.
Listen, I'm just narrating what everybody's thinking right now. They were all like, go to the wrong one, go to the wrong one.
I mean, that's what we're here for, right? Kennedy Space Center. You guys like my backdrop, by the way?
I love that.
Way better than mine.
It's not as good as mine. No, I'm just kidding.
This is not virtual. I could go touch it. I don't think the police would like that, but I could.
No.
You can do anything you want. The question is, should you?
No, not if I want to stay to watch the rocket launch.
Yeah. So, looking pretty good here. Getting a nice little view of the VAB.
That's probably the helicopter.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful shot. That helicopter just did a beautiful shot heading from that meatball that's behind me out to the launch pad about 3.5 miles away. That might be, was it Shannon Gregory, Jim? Is that was the gentleman's name? The head of aviation who we met in his hangar the other day. Well, another one of those unscheduled, the bus just pulled in and he happened to be free to talk to us moments.
Back now with Jim Reed, ham radio operator.
But while you're watching the live broadcast right now with Jared, and he's talking to Jim Reed about amateur radio, off camera, I'm running to the restroom. I was broadcasting for 4 hours. Kind of need a break.
Yeah, no, we definitely need to do that. So
there's a bus coming through. Have I heard anything from?
Anything on the radio?
If I wasn't chatting, I'd probably try and spot it trying to fly through the sky. Because usually on a really clear night like this, you can see it. But I have not. No luck this time, and we're about 3 minutes left in the pass. So, all these folks are going into launch control. Yeah. Oh, yes. So right at the bottom of the VAB here is the launch control facility, and a bus just pulled up with some security officers, and they are looked like the family convoy we saw earlier when we.
I can actually see from where I'm standing, Jared, some of that plume burn off. Again, that's completely normal, but I can actually see it. Which.
All right. So yeah, there's that big plume of smoke there now. Or steam, rather. And again, completely normal. This is just a consequence of fueling a rocket with very, 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 very cold propellant. So yeah, we're getting close here. James, we got a really cool story. Something we were talking about earlier is like, what are some of the things that can scrub a launch? One of those things is boats that are in the way. Larry Butler on YouTube shares this anecdote. He was sailing offshore from Miami to Charleston. He was south of the Cape. The cops stopped us and directed us to a safe distance. 2 hours later, the shuttle blasted off right over our mast. That's awesome. But yeah, they got to have the boats out of the way. That's just something that you got to do. So really cool story.
Safety. On behalf of our entire team at SpaceX, we are honored to have you aboard Dragon Capsule Endeavour today for its next trip to the International Space Station. We wish you a great mission, good luck, Godspeed, and enjoy the ride.
And thank you very much for those kind words. We'd like to thank all the trainers, technicians, engineers, decision makers, and planners who have defined our mission ahead and trained us and given the faith in us to execute that mission. And Crew 6 is ready to launch.
Yeah, but this thing is
SpaceX, for awareness, we are seeing a TTEB load issue and are troubleshooting. We are currently still go, but have further evaluation before making a final decision. We'll get you a final read before T0.
What?
Okay.
And SpaceX Dragon Talk.
Okay, you can't see me right now, but I just kind of like put my hands on my knees. And
Are you ready?
well, we're going to find out this issue that they just came across. The troubleshooting. They're still go for launch, but we will find out, and then they have 5 minutes to figure it out.
Terminal count. F9 tanks are pressurizing for strong back retrack.
They're continuing with their operations. That's a good sign. So, Jared, we are about 4.5 minutes out. They can go at 1:45, or they're not going at all.
Strong back is retracting.
So
I didn't really catch what the issue was. Did you catch?
It was something about maybe like a fuel load issue, something like that. But you can see that some of the arms are beginning to retract away from the rocket.
Yeah, they're still proceeding. They are under the assumption that they're going to be able to get this, whatever it is, resolved in the next 3 minutes and 40 seconds.
Dragon is in terminal count and on internal power.
Expecting an update of briefing to take place in the briefing room, not too far from where I'm standing, later on in the middle of the night.
This is the LD on countdown 1. Hold.
Oh,
We're standing
we are
down
holding
due to a TTEB ground issue.
All right, so they
back on my knees.
Launch report has started.
Oh, I don't think my group knows here, Jared.
Yeah.
Dragon SpaceX with that call from LD. You are go to step into 5.100 launch scrub.
Wow, we are scrubbing.
5.100 launch scrub.
That is insane.
Oh! You
Can you just say it worked? Can you come back out to my view? I mean, you can keep the rocket up.
Yeah.
I just feel like my anguish here is.
Yep, and so
was that last transmission that their troubleshooting worked?
No, looks like
okay.
No, it looks like in fact.
Let me say this. Am I disappointed? Of course I am. We got to T-minus 5 minutes, but safety is first. So if there is something that seems the slightest bit wrong, safety is first. Again, we talked earlier when they were closing the hatch. I had Crew 5, they had to close the hatch twice because they found a foreign object inside the capsule, and it turned out to be a single strand of hair. That's how minute and complex these things are.
Okay, so what they're talking about here is that they couldn't.
That's 145.
Yep. They could not load. Basically, the starter is not working. The thing to actually start it, they couldn't load that. So the starter isn't working.
Like the starter in your car?
In a sense.
Okay. So a lot of the NASA social people are gathered in a circle right now. I'm guessing if they didn't already get the memo, they got the memo now. I know 4 individuals that have to be the most disappointed. I'm sure relieved like we are that if there was something that wasn't working, they called it off. But those astronauts, they wanted to go to.
And Dragon, LD on countdown 1. At this time, our offloads are underway. Vehicle is safe and proceeding nominally with offload. Expecting about a 50-minute offload.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to let me.
SpaceX Dragon copy is about a 50-minute offload. We'll be sitting here waiting. Thanks.
He sounds thrilled.
He sounds, yeah.
Yeah. So,
I think just to really try to articulate this, it's the timing, right?
Yeah.
Everything was going so well. Here's what I was planning to say if this rocket had gone off tonight. Something about how marvelous and impressive it was. But I really wanted to, if I could find the words, talk about how, despite all the conflict in the world, all the issues, there is hope for mankind. We can do this. And that proof is in spaceflight. It's in the technology that is developed. It's in the science research that is shared, the cooperative nature. We have 4 people sitting right now atop this rocket, built by private industry and being flown for public research. And those 4 people are from 3 different countries. So regardless of what tensions are out there, there is living proof that humankind can do amazing things, and we can take a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind, they're going to a laboratory that was built by multiple nations.
We saw so much out here at Kennedy Space Center. I would have loved to see a rocket go off, but I have so much more I want to share with you coming up. So please find us wherever you are, and we look forward to bringing more to that. Jared,
yep.
To you, to Peter, this has been a once-in-a-lifetime weekend for me, and I hope our viewers have enjoyed it as well. And so I will sign off here from Kennedy Space Center and send it back over to you.
Sounds good. Thank you, James.
All right, we're back on the bus. It's about 2 o'clock. As you saw in our live broadcast, they scrubbed about T-minus 5 minutes left due to a technical problem. Jim? Hi. We had a good conversation tonight about International Space Station ham radio operation.
Yes, we did.
How are we feeling now back on the bus, though?
Disappointed, but completely understanding that stuff's got to work and you got to be 100% safe. You can't pull over, right? It's got to be right 100% before you go.
Yeah.
So
there's no AAA.
There's no AAA in space.
I'm gonna get a shot here of Holly, who we talked to tonight as well too, but we couldn't really see her carrying all our stuff. I didn't say it on the broadcast tonight. Logistically, I don't know if I can stay another night. NASA gives social participants that option to come on back.
I've been here for a bunch of different launches, not my first scrub. So until it goes, I kind of am, it's not go until it goes.
Yeah.
Because last year I came down and it didn't go because there was a cruise ship in the exclusion zone.
We talked about this tonight, yeah.
Yeah, so anything can happen.
Well, through the power of editing.
Yes.
The people at home get to see it whenever it happens.
That's right.
I was down there at Kennedy Space Center, but holding down the fort for us here at the Carolina Weather Group was Jared Smith, who is joining me once again. Jared, hello. Here we are. Deja vu all over again. My dear friend, how are you?
And it was at about this point where the glitch, the ground system for the TT started to rear itself.
A little under 4 minutes now to launch of Crew 6. 2 Americans, an astronaut from the United Arab Emirates, and 1 from Russia, making up this international flight to the International Space Station. Brierton and Charlotte North, getting to know NASA and SpaceX this weekend at Kennedy. Share it with you all. And on behalf of Jared Smith in Charleston, let's listen in now to the last 60 seconds of the countdown of NASA SpaceX Crew 6 from Kennedy Space Center.
Also wait for a call of the arming of the flight termination system. The Dragon flight computers are configured for launch. Flight termination system will allow Falcon 9 to talk to Dragon on the ride uphill. Terminate the flight, issuing an abort.
Startup. Dragon is in countdown.
T-minus 1 minute and counting. Dragon is in countdown. Everything's looking good for launch.
SpaceX Dragon copy. Go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds.
T-minus 30 seconds and counting. All teams pulled go.
15 seconds.
Ready for an on-time launch for the instantaneous
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power and liftoff of Crew 6. Go Dragon, go Falcon.
Now launching on Endeavour's first flight to the International Space Station. Vehicles pitching downrange, 1.7 million pounds of thrust provided by the 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. Hearing good calls, stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
A few more clouds in the sky at Kennedy tonight than there were the other night.
Vehicle is supersonic. Max Q.
Stage 1 throttle up.
All right, now that we're past Max Q.
1 Bravo.
Copy, 1 Bravo.
So Max Q is when the rocket is under the most stress during the liftoff.
To track about the position of the Falcon 9 and the Dragon as they make their way up the eastern seaboard.
You know, ahead of the trip, people told me 2 things. It makes a really loud sound and it looks like a sun in the sky.
Started.
And I can see both of those things on the video here tonight.
We're about 30 seconds away from main engine cutoff, which will be followed quickly by stage separation and second engine start, which is the ignition of that MVAC engine on the second stage.
Jared, they're taking a look here inside one of the booster rockets. That will peel away.
Separation confirmed.
And I can see it perfectly on the weather satellite.
I'm looking forward to seeing that in a few minutes.
Yes, it's very clear. And in a minute or so, the first stage will be beginning its burn to land.
We have a question in our YouTube. How many gravities was Q max? The Crew Dragon's engines can propel it half a mile in just under 7.5 seconds, exerting up to 4 Gs, which is 4 times the force of Earth's gravity. Okay, we're looking at the booster rocket now, coming back down to planet Earth, landing on a SpaceX drone ship. We're looking straight down the barrel. You can see it's got little feet. They're kind of like flippers or propellers, and it's going to help it kind of come in here. It is obviously has its engine on, then it's to slow its descent. It's still coming down. Gravity is still stronger than the force upward, but it's trying to slow itself down in order to not crash into the landing pad. And I think they maybe just landed it.
That's so cool. So
Jared has been geeking out in my preview monitor with a smirk on his face, nerding out about what he has observed on weather satellite.
Yes.
Capturing tonight's launch from Kennedy.
Yeah.
In Florida.
This is pretty cool. Let's see. There it is.
Wow.
And then this little dark spot right here, like where my mouse has been, and I realize that that's kind of gone away now, but I'll point it out again here in a second. That's smoke. That's just the trailing smoke from the launch. And you can see just how fast that thing goes. Yep.
Jared, how many frames on satellite was that actually picked up on?
About 4 or 5.
So because we're taking pictures every 30 seconds, we were able to get 4 or 5 frames. But on behalf of Jared Smith, Peter Palanamente, and everyone here at the Carolina Weather Group, I'm James Brierton. Thanks so much for joining us. Go Crew 6.
Where I'm currently standing. Don't stand where I'm currently standing is what I was just told.
Together for every single launch. This is an operational location. Every single launch.
Less than 1 mile per hour. Yes.
Operational move. We're walking this way. Right back.
Thank you.
We're going.
10 minutes. 10 minutes. Oh, God.
Oh, I'm taking a video. I should have suspected as much. Safely up to space. Also out here at the launch complex. And that's the time. They literally, as you might be able to hear in the background, getting time countdowns. Hey, Scotty. And be sure to subscribe to the Carolina Weather Group on YouTube for live coverage of the Crew 7 launch and the return of Crew 6 back here to Earth. From the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, I'm James Brierton. Thanks for